Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to Lost in the Pond, and the video is 7 myths British people believe about America. Part 3. I don't know if I've watched the other parts, I can't remember. But maybe I have a long time ago, maybe I haven't. I'm not sure. But I saw this pop up and I thought, watch this video, give it a reaction. But yeah, let's just jump into this. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see some more of my videos that I can't post to YouTube for whatever reason. TV series, movie reactions, music reactions, loads of different things on my Patreon. But yeah, if you're interested, links are in the description. But if not, let's just check this out and see some myths that British people believe. Maybe I've believed these before. We're going to see.
Hello, this video is sponsored by BritBox, the premier streaming service for Britain's most beloved TV shows. I'm Lawrence Brown and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to myths. Specifically, myths that British people like me believed about the United States of America. For those not keeping count, this is part 3 in the series. As is customary, I'll link to part 2 at the end of this video, and if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, do that now. Without further ado, here are 7 myths that British people believe about the United States of America, part 3. This is a sort of
All
weird...
Americans are rich. I mean, I guess because you see big homes and stuff, but I don't know if it's specifically that all Americans are rich. But maybe that's just a difference between me growing up and him growing up. Maybe in his generation that was more thought about. But you definitely do see the homes just in general being a lot bigger, and that probably does cross your mind because that's just what you see on TV and stuff.
One. I think the notion that all Americans are super rich, for me, comes from the fact that I was brought up in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, there
and
we
a lot
go.
of the films that came out of Hollywood at that time seemed to depict American families as super wealthy and, you know, just excessive expenditure. I'm thinking of things like Home Alone, where you have this huge family in this huge house, or any sitcom in the 90s that seemed to vaguely be set in New York City, in which people lived in these massive apartments while simultaneously working in a coffee shop. But since then, I've come to find that there's actually varying degrees of wealth throughout the entire country. In fact, there's probably more awareness these days in Britain that the United States has this huge gap between the super rich and the poor, and that for every giant house lived in by the McAllister family, there are homeless encampments in major cities. There are people living paycheck to paycheck, as I did myself for many years. In some ways, it feels like most Americans aren't rich, depending on how you define rich.
Everyone's like Florida Man. That would be cool though. I'm not gonna lie. If everyone was like Florida Man, that would make one hell of a country.
Here's the thing, right? When I lived in England and you get these kind of news stories coming from America that, you know, some dude rode an alligator through a shopping mall to steal some jewelry for his cousin who he was also married to. That sort of thing helped to build up this kind of stereotype in your head about Americans in general. And in recent years, when that kind of story drops, it usually falls under the category of Florida Man, which, you know, might be unfair to Florida, I don't know, might be unfair to men. But I suppose there's a perception that Florida produces a higher ratio of these kinds of stories, probably because they have more alligators. But anyway, rest assured that those kind of stories make it to England because they're so extreme. And because they're so extreme, that means that most Americans aren't like this. In hindsight, I suppose that's pretty obvious, but sometimes you've just got to cut through the perceptions that are created by the news. In a
Americans applaud at the cinema. What? Is that a thing?
previous video, I talked about the American tendency to applaud at the end of films, but in hindsight, I'm not sure they really do all that often. I feel like I've only seen it happen once, and that was at the end of a Star Wars film.
Well, I've never seen anyone applauding at a cinema. To be fair, I've never been to a Star Wars film at the cinema, but I've never seen anyone applauding at the cinema, and it's never anything that I didn't think that was a thing. But I guess maybe it is he's saying myths that people believe, so he's saying maybe he believed it, but it's not true. But he said he saw it once.
And us Star Wars fans are quite fanatical, right? I didn't see too many people clap their hands at Phantom Thread. It doesn't mean that they didn't enjoy it. They might even have found it a bit weird. But the fact is, most American cinema goers don't reach the end of the film and go, "Oh yeah, kick ass!" They just sort of, you know, take it in, like British cinema goers. In fact, on the whole, I'm not sure there's too much difference in the way that British and American cinema goers behave. Both countries have those people who talk too loud or check their phone or spill popcorn everywhere. That's me, the popcorn person is me. Anyway, speaking of applause-worthy entertainment on your screen, that brings us on to this. Oh, hello. Don't mind me. Just
The
watching
ads?
another episode of Shetland on Brit.
Getting his money. You'd love to see it. The reason I'm skipping this is because this ad still isn't in place now because it was like 4 months ago. But getting his money, you gotta love to see it.
Screen instructions to make your purchase for your chance to win. Once they redeem their code, the recipient can cast Apple TV or Roku device, as well as LG and Samsung smart TVs. The link is in my description below.
Yellow school buses.
This.
Wait, they're not real. But yellow school buses aren't real, which means they are real. Because myths that British people think they aren't real. Wait, that's confused me. The wording's confused me. Yellow school buses are real. You see them on movies. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I think. They are real, right? A lot of people will get the yellow school bus to get to school.
Is a huge one that British people like me believe, in fact, it's probably just me, that these yellow school buses that you see in films, from Superman to Forrest Gump to every other one, was just a made-up movie trope.
Oh, okay. No, I see what it means now.
Like the 555 area code. But not only are these buses...
I can see that, though, because you sort of see in films, like you see the yellow taxis in New York, which are real. I've never been to New York, but I'm assuming it is. They are real. What other things can I think of? Black cabs in London, they are real. Those sort of things, right?
Is very, very real. They are found throughout the entire country. To the extent that I even did a video on how they became standardized. Their mustard yellow colour was specifically chosen because it was determined that this colour was the most visible to fellow drivers and therefore would result in fewer accidents. American yellow school buses are as real as red London buses. Let me know in the comments below which you think is more iconic. Every now and again, you will hear it said that Americans are arrogant, right? This broad sweeping statement that all Americans are arrogant. And I think the thing is, the full spectrum of personality traits can be found in all countries. It's like saying all Americans are selfless or all Americans are shy. I mean, sure, I've encountered the odd, sometimes very odd, arrogant American. But the same was true, perhaps to an equal extent, in Britain, just with British people, not Americans. Perhaps the perception arises from the fact that arrogant people tend to do or say things that gets people's attention and therefore is packaged up into a neat and tidy clickbait article that helps to once again further propagate this idea that all Americans are the same way. And you
all Americans have amazing teeth.
know, the world of entertainment probably does that for this, the perception that all Americans have perfectly white teeth. And I know what you're thinking, ooh, Lawrence, anybody's teeth look perfect next to the British. But, you know, studies have found that we have some of the healthiest teeth, so who's laughing now? Not us, but for your benefit. Now, the truth is that American dentistry does favour a more aesthetically driven approach to teeth maintenance. So, while teeth are developing, most kids will wear braces, and many Americans whiten their teeth with teeth whiteners. But some Americans have bad or...
I've never whitened my teeth before, to be fair. And I never had braces either. I think I was just lucky. My teeth... I've got like a bit of an underbite or an overbite, whichever one. But it's not like bad at all. And... Actually, I don't think I do. I can move it one like my teeth in front of the other, but I don't know if that's is an overbite when it's just always... Like when I'm sitting normally, my front teeth go... My top teeth go over my bottom teeth. But a little bit, just when I'm like sort of sitting down. But to have perfect teeth, will people just be like this all the time? So when they're sitting normally and not thinking about it, will their teeth be one on top of the other, or will their teeth be the same, one in front of the other? Surely one in front of the other, because if your teeth are like this all the time, that's just not really going to be very comfortable. I think it's actually normal to have one tooth in front of the other when your mouth's closed, right? I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I'm actually just wondering now how it is. But yeah, I was lucky with having straight teeth because that's not very common. I mean, a lot of people have to have braces, and I would have had them if I had to, but luckily that wasn't what I needed. But yeah, that's just that. I didn't face those things because I was always scared to have braces, man. That's what I hated the dentist when I was a kid. And the idea of braces just got me scared for some reason.
Wonky teeth, right? I'm not going to name names, but Chainsaw Jim looks like he hasn't been to the dentist in 40 years. It's just that America doesn't have a tendency to slap those people on the front of magazines.
America was
and finally, before...
Some parts are, right? California, Florida. I mean, it's not actually. I know it's not, but in general, it's always warm. Or Hawaii. In general, in those places, it is like that, right?
When I moved here, I had this impression that America was all palm trees and beaches, which is weird because I've seen the film The Shining. I think a big part of that, though, is that a lot of films that come out of the United States are in fact filmed in California, which does have a lot of palm trees and beaches. The problem is there's this huge part in the middle of the country that isn't on the coasts. And that middle part tends to be a sort of petri dish for the worst weather you've ever seen. That's why I have to endure about 4 tornado warnings every year. That's why there's all this snow and low temperatures at this time of year. And
what, even in Chicago you face that many tornado warnings? I know Chicago gets hit, but not to that level. I thought it was just every so often, like maybe once a year. And not always all like that, not even that often, even less sometimes. But I guess that's not the case. And I was comparing how Chicago's tornadoes would compare to British ones, but I guess it's a lot more common in Chicago because I didn't realise it was that high.
And why you should watch my November special for more information. Basically, America is a rich tapestry of all kind of weather patterns, not to mention topography. For all of the beaches that you have on its admittedly long coastline, there are places that many humans can't even set foot. Then there are places that most humans could set foot but choose not to because there's nothing for 100 miles. So the perception that I previously developed that it's all sunshine and beaches probably comes from the fact that I craved sunshine and beaches when I lived in Britain, despite the fact that it's also a myth that it perpetually rains there. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the myths that you...
Well, there we go. Some myths that British people believe. Definitely see some of these, but he did mention some of them were from when he was younger, growing up, and sort of saw films and stuff, especially for the first one. But I love the thought of Brits watching American movies, believing the stereotypes that Americans are all incredibly affluent, while also being extremely skeptical of school buses actually being yellow. That's why I have to endure 4 tornado warnings every year. As someone from Oklahoma, let me play you the world's tiniest violin. Oh, that's pain, man. That's just one day for you, isn't it? Oh, mate. What a world that is. I cannot imagine living in a world where you get those sorts of things going on. That's so fascinating to me. The fact that you'll get tornadoes that often and just all this stuff. It's just, I can't comprehend it, but... that's just the world for some people. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And if you want more reactions to this sort of stuff, let me know in the comments. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.